If you are tired of trying to invest through tariffs because of what they have done to your portfolio and your emotions this entire year, then this is the video for you, because I'm going to explain what is going on with tariffs right now, how and why were they blocked, and most importantly, what could happen next, because this story is not over yet. Let's go ahead and break it down. You have likely heard the news, especially if you are watching this video, that the 10% blanket tariffs here in the US have been blocked by a US trade court. Yay! The stock market also responded pretty positively, at least at the time I'm doing this video, and it is about 1:30. So the market is still open. However, there are some things that you absolutely want to know, because again, it ain't over. But first, let's start from the top. Yes, the Liberation Day tariffs, that was the ones that said 10% for everybody, 145% for China, at least at first. Those tariffs are blocked. Again, that was a blanket tariff that pretty much said anything coming from almost everybody is going to get hit with a 10% price tag increase. That was it. Okay, now at one point it was going to start on X date, and then they just kept moving it back and pausing it and all that type of stuff, which is one reason why it was blocked. Why is that? That's because the trade court said that, well, first, the president had used what was called emergency powers. It was an act passed in 1977, and that law said, you know, this emergency powers, and when there's emergency, you can implement some tariffs. And he kind of pushed that law a bit too far, because think of it this way. If it is an emergency, can you delay it? Can you do that? If it is an emergency, can you go from 145% down to 30? Can you go from 10% tariffs up to 50 if you are the EU? Like, it just doesn't, that's not an emergency, because there have been so many times where a tariff has been implemented and paused and raised and lowered and gone back and forth. That they don't sound like, by definition, that is not an emergency. Okay, if it's an emergency, I can't call the fire department and then tell them, actually, no, come in 30 minutes instead of right now. Come tomorrow instead. No, it's an emergency. You got to be here right now. That's essentially what the court said. You can't use it like that. That's not how it works. You are either going to have to use a different law, or you have to go through Congress, because Congress has the power of the purse. So the blanket tariff has been blocked. You can't use that one no more. You got 10 days to either stop all tariff collection or go through and appeal it. Now, notice what I've been saying. I've been very careful in my words. I'm a professional at doing this, and though I'm not perfect, I'm a professional at writing words. I got books and stuff. I said the blanket tariffs. The sector tariffs are still on, and there's a reason as to why. The sector tariffs primarily were on steel, aluminum, and cars. Now, I have said this before. The blanket tariffs didn't make sense. You can't just tariff everything and just tax everything just for the sake of it's not built here in the US. That, I've said it, I've done a whole video on it. It just economically just doesn't make sense. But to say that, hey, steel, we need to make more of that here, let's disincentivize people and companies from doing it elsewhere. Okay, cool. There are way too many people who are afraid of investing because you think you're going to lose everything in the stock market, or that it is way too complex to even get started. That is why I am proud to partner with Wealthmore, because working one-on-one with a financial advisor is just $25 a month, and the minimum is just $5,000. You can even message your financial advisor within the app. If you're not ready to work with a financial advisor, there is a free community that you can use within the app. You can download Wealthmore using the link right here and use the code BUILDINGBREAD today. All right, back to the video, right? Well, the law that he used, I think it was Section 232, says that we are implementing this tariff for, again, cars, aluminum, and steel because of national security. That tariff is still in place. That one is likely to remain, and you know, I kind of get it, right? Because we do need steel, we do need aluminum for a bunch of other things other than just defense. But same thing with the CHIPS Act that we passed under the previous administration. We need to make more chips in the U.S. for national security purposes. It makes a lot of sense. And sector tariffs, I've said prior to this administration, or even this administration in general, does make sense. In his first term, he had some sector tariffs. You didn't hear me complaining. You didn't hear a lot of people complaining, because those made a lot of sense. Sector targeted tariffs are generally, not all the way, but generally okay. All right, so sector tariffs, yes. Blanket tariffs, no. That brings us to the second part of this. Is the administration just going to sit here and do nothing? The answer is no. Step one, appeal to the Supreme Court, which CNBC says they have already done. So we have to wait and see if the Supreme Court says, yes, you can use the emergency powers to continue to just raise and lower tariffs however you please. Now, I'm not someone who has a law degree. I got one in economics, but it ain't law. Okay, so I can't tell you with confidence. I can tell you, right, but I don't know how much weight it's going to hold, whether the Supreme Court is going to say yes or no. I would venture to say they're going to say no. I feel like they should say no because in my mind, it's clear as day. But again, I'm not an attorney. However, the other way is this, and this is where things get interesting. There is another way that he can implement an up to 15% tariff using a different section of the law. To do this, he would need to A, launch an investigation on these nations and on those industries. And it allows him to put up, again, up to 15% tariffs for 150 days, for up to 150 days. After that, you would need to go through Congress. So you can just go through Congress, which is unlikely. Supreme Court can just tell you yes, or you have to go through a different law and do that investigation. The investigation, according to CNBC as well as Goldman Sachs, they say that is going to be the next step. And you can go from 10% tariffs, which were out there, up to 15. That is what you need to know as an investor. Now, knowing that, okay, I'm going to slow down. That was a lot. Knowing that, what should you do? Okay, I'm saying it slow for a reason, so you can formulate your opinion because there's a reason, because there's something that's going to happen here. Okay, I just told you what is likely to happen. Okay, there was a 10% tariff. It could be 15, which is usually a bad thing. Normally, what has happened all this year? Keep announcing tariffs, market falls, something happens, they pause tariff, market shoots up. And most of the times this year, if you bought when the market fell, you probably made a lot of money. Okay, so the likelihood, it's not a guarantee, we don't know if they're going to go for this option. They just said that's a possibility. Okay, now if they take that law, here's what is likely to happen. And here's what we know according to the law is likely. Okay, that is clearly something that is temporary. It can only last up to 150 days if that is the route that they take. So A, is going to feel more severe. I would venture to say that the market is going to fall. If it isn't paused, which every single time they've done something, it has been paused or delayed in some way. In fact, it's gotten so bad they have called it the taco trade. Trump always chickens out. I didn't make it up. That was out there, okay? But if they go for the 15% option, we all know it can only last up to 150 days, which again, has been my entire point this whole time. Even though some people in the comments, yes, I read them, yes, I have not forgot, they called me arrogant. They said it's an American-centric view and that, whatever, right? I've been saying that you should continue investing, you should stick with a good, strong strategy and preferably for stocks and companies that are tariff resistant because this can all go away like that. That's exactly what I said just months ago. Now, did I think it was going to be a court order that was going to just wipe it away? No, I didn't think it was going to be that. Okay, did I think that the president was just going to say, no, let's just go back to normal? Possible, but unlikely, right? But the market has responded positively as of today. And I don't know where we're going to be. Again, I repeat, I don't know where we're going to be at the end of the year. However, again, we see that tariffs have been bad and they can be moved, reversed, paused, or outright eliminated by one way or another. And again, if the market dips because they go for that 15% option, that could be an opportunity for you to buy, and it could be an opportunity for you to hold for the long term because we know that that is something that could be quite temporary. And again, that is if they even go for that option to begin with. But again, as investors, other than just buying the dip and going for the long term, what else should you consider in a time like this? Yes, you want to consider those tariff-proof options, but Sticking with the long term is something that you absolutely want to consider in a time like this, because there is a lot of news and stuff swirling right now. You only got but one portfolio, and a mistake can absolutely cost you. That is the primary thing that you want to pay attention to. If you want to know what things you want to do to protect your portfolio, as well as any stocks to add to your portfolio in a time like this, then you want to check out this video right here.